Monica squeezed her eyes shut, trying to endure everything for the sake of her family as she stood at the wedding ceremony. This was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, but it wasn't. It was a wedding without a groom. She had no idea what was happening or what kind of situation she had been dragged into. After the ceremony ended, she spent the entire ride to her husband's home alone in the back seat, with only the family's private driver, which made her feel even more uneasy. When she stepped out of the car, a magnificent estate stood before her. But what shocked her most wasn't the mansion. Standing beside the woman she was about to call her mother-in-law was a handsome young man in a tailored suit, sitting in a wheelchair. It was only then that Monica realized this was the man she had just handed her entire future to. The pounding music shook the nightclub as colorful lights flashed endlessly throughout the room. Everywhere, people were swept away by the addictive remix beats, dancing non-stop as though they had forgotten every burden waiting for them outside. In the center of the massive room stood a small stage. A dancer dressed in an extremely sexy outfit continuously swayed to the music, wrapping herself around the metal pole mounted on the stage, constantly fueling the atmosphere of the night. High above, in a corner of the room, a young woman with her hair tied into a high ponytail revealed her smooth shoulders against the darkness. She wore a fitted athletic sports bra that highlighted her healthy figure and exposed her slim, toned waist. Below it was a denim skirt, not overly tight, but fitted enough to accentuate her curves and long legs that many women would envy. Linda was completely immersed in the energetic sounds, her hands constantly moving across the DJ controller. Looking at her now, no one would ever imagine that by tomorrow morning she would be returning home to marry a man she had never even met. The performance finally ended close to 3 in the morning. Back in the lounge, Linda was still carrying some of the rhythm from the last song she had played. Her head swayed lightly, causing the end of her ponytail to move gently back and forth, making her look even more attractive. Still reluctant to leave? Michael Vaughn asked. He was her coworker, and also the man who had first introduced her to DJing. Linda shrugged. Honestly, I am a little. My life here has been very comfortable. Michael twisted open a bottle of cold water and handed it to her. If you're still reluctant, then don't go. Do you know how hard it was for me to find someone like you? Once you leave, where am I supposed to find another DJ? Linda accepted the bottle, took a sip, and smiled. Maybe I'll come back in a year or two. I'll return someday. When that happens, make sure you hire me again. Michael didn't seem convinced, but he smiled anyway. Then remember to come find me early. Deal. Linda picked up her bag and walked out of the nightclub. Dawn had already begun to break. She slowly turned around and looked back at the place where she had spent the last 7 years living freely, a place filled with countless memories, both joyful and painful. Beginning tomorrow, Linda would return home. She would return to her true identity, a wealthy heiress, the only daughter of one of the country's most powerful business leaders. And beginning tomorrow, perhaps no one would call her Linda anymore. They would call her Monica Whitfield. Monica, over here, someone suddenly shouted as she pushed her luggage through the airport exit. A small figure, almost swallowed by the crowd inside the terminal, was waving her arms energetically to catch her attention. It was Olivia Parker, the family assistant, and the person Monica had always been closest to at home after her mother. Monica walked toward her with a faint smile. The moment Olivia saw her, she rushed forward and threw her arms tightly around her. Monica looked slightly surprised at first, but quickly returned the enthusiastic hug. Miss Monica, it's been 7 years since I've seen you. I was so afraid I wouldn't recognize you and fail to pick you up. If that happened, I would blame myself for the rest of my life. Monica smiled and gently tapped Olivia on the forehead. If you didn't recognize me, I'd hate you for the rest of my life. I'd never speak to you again. Both women burst into laughter. It seemed that the passing years had done nothing to weaken their relationship. Olivia led her toward the family car that had already been waiting outside. Once inside the car, Olivia excitedly began talking about everything that had changed. The gardens had been renovated, the fountain had been replaced. The roses had been removed, and different flowers had been planted throughout the estate, yet almost none of it truly registered in Monica's mind. She listened casually without asking many questions because she knew that the answers she really wanted could never come from Olivia. The car drove through the city center before heading toward the wealthy hills where the family estate stood. The tall gates looked completely different from how she remembered them 7 years ago. Back then, the estate had reflected her late mother's elegant taste. The entrance had been built from premium materials with graceful decorative details throughout the property. The landscaping had created a peaceful and calming atmosphere the moment anyone entered. Now, everything had changed. The entire estate had been rebuilt in a luxurious European style. Renaissance-inspired details covered the walls. Massive marble columns stood proudly near the entrance. Elegant rose vines stretched along the property. From a distance, the estate looked more like a grand castle than a family home. Not a single trace of the place she remembered 7 years ago remained. Yet despite all the luxury and glamour on the outside, Monica knew the truth. The Whitfield family was nothing more than an empty shell. That was why her father had resorted to forcing her back home. That was why he needed her to help preserve this illusion of success. Monica couldn't help curling her lips into a faint, mocking smile. The car passed the fountain in front of the estate and stopped at the main entrance. The driver immediately stepped out and opened the door for her. Monica stepped out of the vehicle. She looked completely different from the athletic and slightly sexy DJ who had dominated the nightclub stage only yesterday. Today, she wore an elegant designer dress. Her long hair fell freely over her shoulders in soft feminine waves. At this moment, she looked exactly like the wealthy heiress she truly was. Monica walked into the mansion. Richard Whitfield, chairman of Whitfield Capital Group, was sitting comfortably in the living room reading a newspaper. The moment she saw him, Monica maintained the same calm expression and walked directly toward the sofa before casually taking a seat. 7 years away, and even the house has been rebuilt. Just like people's hearts, Richard lowered the newspaper and looked at her from head to toe, clearly displeased. "You've been gone for 7 years. You come home and can't even greet your father?" Monica responded with a mocking smile. "Educated? Ever since I walked out of this house 7 years ago, you've already considered me a disgrace." Richard clenched his jaw and looked as though he wanted to continue arguing. However, he quickly forced himself to calm down and took a deep breath. "Since you've agreed to come back, remember your promise. As for everything else, I won't hold it against you anymore. Just make sure tomorrow's meeting goes well." With that, Richard stood up and walked away. Monica remained seated in silence. Hidden behind her sunglasses, no one could tell what she was truly thinking. Royal Crown Cafe was one of the most expensive cafes in the city's luxury shopping district. It wasn't famous because the coffee tasted exceptional or because the view was beautiful. It was famous because wealthy people, or people who wanted others to believe they were wealthy, liked to gather there to display their status. Monica wore a cropped top that revealed her waist, ripped jeans, and an oversized shirt intentionally hanging off one shoulder. Her hair was tied loosely to one side and decorated with several silver accessories. Her eyeliner was dark and dramatic. She chewed gum lazily while sitting with one leg crossed over the other, looking nothing like a refined heiress. Across from her sat an elegant older woman dressed in expensive clothing. The woman looked at Monica with obvious disappointment. "Your father told me that you were educated. I expected someone gentle, cultured, and refined. But after meeting you today, I can see that isn't the case." Monica smiled. This reaction was exactly what she had hoped for. She had been called back home because of this ridiculous marriage arrangement, an agreement made between two families many years ago. She had never wanted any part of it. The only reason she returned was because of the conditions her father had offered her. Before allowing him to get what he wanted, she wasn't willing to simply accept being controlled. She certainly wasn't willing to sacrifice her own future without putting up a fight. That was why she had deliberately dressed this way. She wanted to see whether the other family would still proceed with the marriage after seeing her like this. Patricia suddenly laughed. Most people would have been discouraged by Monica's behavior, but Monica knew exactly who she was dealing with. But before returning home, she had researched the Thornton family thoroughly. She knew very well that a woman who had spent decades helping her husband build and manage one of the country's most powerful business empires would never be shaken by such childish tricks. Monica only wanted to test her a little and make sure nobody would be surprised by her lifestyle later. "Do you really think these little games can change my decision?" Patricia asked calmly. "I've already investigated everything about you, both here and in Atlanta." This time, Monica smiled. As expected, Her future mother-in-law was every bit as formidable as she had imagined. Patricia stopped smiling and decided to be direct. 5% of the company's shares, 3 commercial properties in the heart of the city. What do you think? Monica smiled mysteriously and calmly stood up. I don't need any of that. I only need you to keep your promise to invest in my father's company. And one more thing. Don't interfere too much in my personal life. I know how to conduct myself well enough to protect the reputation of both families. Without waiting for Patricia's response, Monica turned and walked away. Patricia remained seated, watching her leave. A faint smile slowly appeared on her face. The wedding day finally arrived. The Whitfield estate had been lavishly decorated from top to bottom. Most of the preparations were intended to impress Richard Whitfield's business partners and associates. The actual wedding ceremony and reception would be hosted by the Thornton family. The Whitfield estate merely served as the location where the bride would be received before departing. Even so, Richard's extravagant nature remained impossible to control. Monica sat in front of a dressing table inside her room. A professional styling and makeup team had been hired exclusively for her. She hadn't even needed to choose the wedding dress herself. Yawning repeatedly, she sat there while they handled everything from her hair to her makeup and clothing. Even after being dressed in a pure white wedding gown custom-made with precious gemstones and pearls, a dress that countless women could only dream of wearing, Monica still felt like a puppet. It seemed as though people could place whatever they wanted on her and she would simply wear it. "Miss Monica!" Olivia exclaimed the moment she saw her. "You look beautiful today." "The most beautiful I've ever seen you." As she spoke, Olivia circled around her, admiring her from every angle. The excessive praise made Monica curious. She lazily glanced at herself in the mirror. She had to admit that even she hadn't expected herself to look this beautiful. Before she could continue admiring her reflection, someone from downstairs entered the room. "Miss Monica, the groom's family has arrived. They're ready to receive the bride. Please come downstairs." Monica simply shrugged, lifted her wedding dress, and headed downstairs. When she reached the main hall, the room was already crowded with guests, most of them her father's business associates. Monica's eyes immediately searched the crowd for her groom. Truthfully, ever since returning home, she had never met him in person. The only information she had managed to find was an old photograph that had clearly been taken years ago. She wasn't even sure what her future husband looked like now. But after searching the room for a while, the person who appeared was not the groom. Instead, it was the woman she had met days earlier. Patricia Thornton, her future mother-in-law. Patricia walked toward her with a warm smile. "Today, I'm here on behalf of my son to bring you home." Monica was confused. From what she knew, the man she was about to marry was one of the youngest and most successful CEOs in the country. There was no reason why a man like that would fail to appear at his own wedding. Outwardly, Monica remained polite and followed Patricia's lead. But inside, her thoughts raced endlessly as she searched for an explanation. Could he be busy with work? No matter how important the work was, nothing should be more important than a wedding day. Perhaps he didn't agree with the marriage. That possibility seemed more realistic. If she hadn't been forced into this arrangement, she would have run away from it herself. Then another possibility crossed her mind. What if he couldn't come? The thought sent a chill down her spine. Patricia interrupted her thoughts. "Monica, I know you're curious about why the groom isn't here on such an important day. You'll understand everything very soon." Patricia spoke after Monica had settled into the wedding car. That statement only convinced Monica even more that something unusual was happening. When the wedding car arrived at the Thornton estate, Monica noticed something strange. Only her car had come here. Everyone else had gone somewhere else. She turned toward the driver. "Where did everyone go? Why am I the only one here? According to the schedule, you'll first complete a private family ceremony here. The guests have already gone to the hotel for the reception." Monica nodded as though she understood, but inwardly she became even more suspicious. She couldn't understand what the Thornton family was planning. Wasn't it normal for the bride and groom to exchange rings together and be officially declared husband and wife? The wedding car stopped in front of the grand entrance of the Thornton estate. The driver stepped out and opened the door for her. Waiting outside were Patricia Thornton and a young man dressed in a perfectly tailored suit sitting in a wheelchair beside her. Monica stared at him. He looked strangely familiar, as though she had seen him somewhere before. Patricia smiled warmly and took her hand. "You're here." We made it just in time. I was worried traffic would delay us. Monica silently followed Patricia toward the young man in the wheelchair. Her face remained calm and expressionless. Patricia finally spoke. Monica, you probably haven't met him yet. This is Derek Thornton, your husband. Monica felt as though she couldn't believe what she was seeing. In an instant, everything finally made sense. She suddenly understood why Patricia had insisted on this marriage, despite Monica's rebellious reputation. She understood why the Thornton family had agreed to invest in her father's struggling company. She understood why Patricia had even offered her shares in the Thornton business empire. It was because the man she had been asked to marry was disabled. Monica stared at Derek without blinking. Derek seemed irritated by her reaction. What? You didn't know the man you were marrying was disabled? If you want to back out now, it's already too late. Your father already signed the marriage agreement, and you no longer have any way to refuse. Monica was slightly surprised by the sharpness of Derek's words. As expected of the youngest CEO in the country's business world, even though he had lost the use of his legs, nothing could diminish the powerful presence surrounding him. But Monica was not someone easily intimidated. Before coming here, she had already considered the possibility of facing a situation like this. More importantly, she was someone who kept her promises. Since she had agreed to this marriage, she would not be driven away by a few cutting remarks. Monica slowly revealed a mysterious smile. She adjusted her hair, straightened her wedding dress, and looked directly into Derek's eyes. It's already the auspicious hour. Let's proceed with the ceremony. Derek froze slightly. He had not expected that standing before such a situation, Monica could still remain so calm and composed. He stared at her for a moment before finally shrugging his shoulders. Without saying another word, he turned his wheelchair and headed inside with her. By the time all of the wedding ceremonies and formalities had finally ended, it was already late afternoon. Throughout the day, Derek found himself occasionally observing Monica. The woman had reacted very differently from what he had expected. He had assumed that the moment she discovered the truth, she would become angry, humiliated, or even attempt to escape the marriage altogether. Instead, she had calmly accepted everything and carried herself with confidence from beginning to end. Even now, as the wedding celebrations concluded, Monica remained composed. That unexpected reaction left Derek with a strange feeling of curiosity. For the first time since agreeing to this marriage, he found himself wondering what kind of woman Monica Whitfield truly was beneath the surface. By the time Monica finally dragged her exhausted body back to the bridal suite, she felt completely drained. Derek had returned several minutes before her. He wanted nothing more than to escape the endless ceremonies and social obligations as quickly as possible so he could finally rest. Sometimes he genuinely wondered where people found the energy to go through an entire wedding day and still have enough strength left for a wedding night afterward. He had just begun unbuttoning his dress shirt to relieve the suffocating feeling around his neck when Monica pushed the door open and entered. The sudden movement startled him. Monica slowly dragged herself into the room and looked around as though searching for something. The moment she spotted the bed, she didn't hesitate. She walked straight toward it, swept aside the flowers and decorations covering it, and casually threw herself onto the mattress. Derek felt as though he had never met a woman so lacking in basic manners. Hey, do you even know the minimum level of courtesy? You're supposed to knock before entering a room. Monica's eyes were already half closed with exhaustion. I'm entering my own room. Why would I need to knock? Does your family have some strange rule like that? Derek was caught off guard. 2. He had lived alone for so long that even Patricia always knocked before entering his room. He had almost forgotten that he now had a wife, and that from this day forward they would be sharing the same room. Suddenly, he felt like he was the unreasonable one. Even so, you just arrived. What if I had been changing clothes? You should at least show some courtesy. But Monica didn't even bother responding. She had already closed her eyes and seemed fully determined to take a nap before dealing with anything else. Derek waited for a response. None came. Hey, are you even listening to me? Monica remained motionless. Only the soft sound of her breathing filled the room. Derek rolled his wheelchair closer and discovered that she had already fallen asleep. Her hair, makeup, jewelry, and enormous wedding dress were all still completely intact. Unable to tolerate it any longer, he tapped the side of the bed. Hey, You're seriously going to sleep like this? At least wake up and change clothes first. No matter how much he called her, Monica didn't respond. She even turned over slightly and hugged a pillow more comfortably. Finally giving up, Derek left the room. Before leaving, he noticed the room felt slightly cold, so he increased the temperature on the air conditioner. As he rolled out into the hallway, he silently promised himself that he would let her have the room tonight. Starting tomorrow, however, he would make sure she understood exactly who the master of this room was. After Derek left, Monica still didn't open her eyes. But a faint smile slowly appeared at the corner of her lips. When Monica woke up, it was already 9 o'clock the next morning. Even she was surprised. She didn't feel uncomfortable at all. When she had first moved to America, she had spent nearly an entire month struggling to sleep because of the time difference. She had constantly felt exhausted and sluggish. Yet strangely, she had slept incredibly well the previous night, and she hadn't even woken up once in the middle of the night. Perhaps the events of yesterday had drained too much of her energy. Monica leisurely walked into the bathroom, changed clothes, and enjoyed a hot shower. Afterward, she put on a comfortable outfit and headed downstairs. When she reached the living room, neither Patricia nor Derek was there. Only several housemaids were busy cleaning. Monica was about to stop one of them when an older man approached her. His hair had already turned gray and he wore a neatly groomed mustache that immediately drew attention. The man smiled politely. "Mrs. Thornton, you're awake." Monica looked at him curiously. "And you are?" "Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Harold Bennett. I am the butler of the Thornton estate. Mrs. Thornton told me about you. Welcome to the family." Harold extended his hand. Monica understood immediately and returned the gesture with a polite handshake. Suddenly remembering something, she asked, "Where are Patricia and Derek?" "Mrs. Thornton had an important meeting this morning and had to leave early. She had hoped to share breakfast with you on your first morning here, but you seemed very tired. She didn't want to be late, so she left first. Mr. Derek is currently in the garden enjoying some fresh air." Monica felt slightly embarrassed. Patricia had waited for her and missed breakfast because of her. They weren't particularly close, but Patricia had always treated her kindly. "Tomorrow, I'll wake up earlier and have breakfast with her." Harold smiled politely. "Would you like me to show you around the estate?" "I thought you might still be unfamiliar with everything." Monica thought for a moment. She had nothing planned for today. Sure, Harold guided her through the various rooms of the estate and eventually led her outside into the gardens. As soon as they reached the back garden, Monica spotted a wheelchair from a distance. Derek was sitting comfortably beneath a pavilion, drinking tea and enjoying the morning breeze. Truthfully, he was a very handsome man. Sharp eyes, a straight nose, smooth skin, a strong and confident presence. If not for his legs, few people would believe he was disabled. Before Monica could say anything, Derek spoke first. "What is it? Never seen a place this nice before?" Monica immediately replied, "You've never visited my family's home before, so how would you know yours is nicer?" Harold realized he was no longer needed and quietly excused himself. Monica walked into the pavilion, sat beside Derek, poured herself a cup of tea, and casually took a sip. Derek sneered. A family company so desperate it had to marry off its daughter just to secure investment money. "I suppose everything your family owns is nothing but a facade." Monica didn't respond. She knew he wasn't entirely wrong. She simply ignored the comment and reached for a piece of fruit. "You're adapting to being part of this family surprisingly quickly." Monica remained calm. "That's normal. People have to live wherever life takes them." Derek laughed coldly. "Remember something. You're here as a daughter-in-law, not the lady of the house." What kind of daughter-in-law sleeps until 9 in the morning on her first day and makes her mother-in-law skip breakfast? "Yesterday, I tolerated you taking over the bridal suite. Starting now, don't push your luck. You're just as rotten as that failing company your family comes from." Monica slowly placed her teacup on the table and looked directly into his eyes. "I'll handle my relationship with Patricia appropriately. As for you, you're only my husband, and frankly, not much of one. It's not my responsibility to make you happy. You'll have to get used to my behavior." Monica had always been fiercely independent. Even Richard had never been able to control her. If not for her grandfather's company being on the verge of collapse, she never would have agreed to marry a man she had never met. The company had originally belonged to her grandfather before Richard inherited it through her mother. Monica couldn't bear the thought of her grandfather's life's work disappearing. Richard knew exactly how much that meant to her. That was why he had successfully forced her to return home. After speaking, Monica noticed Derek's expression darken. Realizing she may have gone too far, she quickly stood and escaped back toward the house. That evening, Patricia finally returned home. Monica only learned about it when one of the maids came upstairs to invite her down for dinner. At first, she hadn't planned to go, partly because she didn't want to deal with her difficult husband, and partly because she needed to prepare for her DJ performance that night. Although she had returned home, being a DJ was no longer her primary career. Still, she wanted to continue pursuing her passion for a while before officially stepping into the business world. Michael Vaughn had already helped her contact several entertainment managers, and one venue happened to be looking for a DJ. Tonight would be her first performance there. But remembering how Patricia had waited for her that morning, Monica decided she should at least show some courtesy. Tonight she wore a black sequined crop top that shimmered under the light, paired with a short denim skirt that revealed her long legs and black boots. The overall look was both sexy and mysterious. The Thornton family's dining room was much larger than that of an ordinary household. Patricia sat at one side of the table. When she saw Monica dressed for a performance, she looked slightly surprised, but still smiled warmly. Derek sat nearby without even turning his head in her direction. His expression remained cold, as though they were complete strangers. Monica walked over, pulled out a chair beside Patricia, and sat down across from Derek. Patricia smiled. "Are you heading somewhere tonight? I have a DJ performance tonight. You already know what I do, don't you?" Patricia looked slightly uncomfortable when she heard Monica mention performing at a nightclub. She remained silent for a moment before placing food onto Monica's plate. Then, "Eat first. Don't go to work hungry." Monica didn't reject her kindness and ate everything Patricia served her. Across the table, Derek appeared indifferent, but in reality, he secretly glanced at her several times. Seeing her dressed that way, he couldn't resist making a sarcastic comment. "Do female DJs always have to wear so little fabric?" Monica immediately frowned. It was true that some DJs performed in elegant dresses or even formal suits, but she liked dressing this way because it felt comfortable and practical while performing. Besides, she liked her figure and saw nothing wrong with showing confidence in her appearance. Monica was about to fire back when her phone suddenly rang. It was the nightclub manager. She immediately stood up, shot Derek a sharp glare, and grabbed her bag. "I'm leaving." "Enjoy dinner." As she hurried toward the door, she vaguely heard Patricia saying something to Derek, but she was already too focused on getting to work to pay attention. Nightclubs in America often stayed open until very late, but things were different here. Monica finished her set around 1 in the morning. Because of everything that had happened recently, and because she was still adjusting to the time difference, she felt more exhausted than usual. By the time she returned to the Thornton estate, everyone else was already asleep. She quietly made her way upstairs, trying not to disturb anyone. The room was completely dark. Still unfamiliar with the layout, she struggled for several seconds before finally finding the light switch. The moment the room lit up, she nearly screamed. Derek was already sitting by the window. He slowly turned to look at her. "Are you crazy? Sitting in a dark room without turning on the lights? You almost gave me a heart attack." Derek remained calm. "This is my room. Whether I turn on the lights or not is my choice. As for you coming home this late, people who don't know better might think you're doing something far worse than DJing." Monica tossed her phone and bag onto the bed. "If they think that, your family's reputation would suffer 10 times more than mine." Derek frowned slightly. "Try dressing more appropriately next time. Not everyone is going to be as accepting as the people you used to work with. Thanks. I don't need your concern." Monica walked straight into the bathroom. After soaking in hot water, she emerged feeling much better. By then, Derek was sitting comfortably on the bed reading a book. Someone had probably helped him move there while she was bathing. Monica began searching for a hairdryer but couldn't find one anywhere. Seeing her frustration, Derek finally spoke without looking up from his book. Behind the door, Monica looked at him suspiciously but checked anyway. Sure enough, the hairdryer was exactly where he said it would be. A few minutes later, the loud sound of the dryer filled the room. Derek couldn't focus on reading anymore and lowered his book. He glanced toward Monica. She was wearing a comfortable tulip-patterned pajama set. Her damp hair fell gently around her shoulders as she carefully dried each section. At this moment, she looked surprisingly gentle and feminine, nothing like the rebellious nightclub DJ he had become accustomed to seeing. If he hadn't already known her personality, he might have mistaken her for the perfect wife every man dreamed of having. Dry your hair faster. It's late. I want to sleep. Monica turned around after hearing his irritated tone but said nothing. She continued for a while longer before finally turning off the dryer. Then she suddenly sat down on the sofa and stared directly at him. Where did you sleep last night? Derek looked confused. Why do you care? Just answer. The guest room across the hall. You were sleeping like the dead. You were still wearing your wedding dress and taking up the entire bed. I had no choice. Monica nodded slowly. Don't worry. You won't lose your room tonight. Derek immediately looked suspicious. The next morning, Monica didn't wake up until noon. She lazily walked downstairs and immediately spotted Derek sitting in the living room with Harold Bennett beside him. The moment Derek saw her, he couldn't resist making a comment. I thought you'd sleep until the afternoon. Monica rolled her eyes. Didn't you see what time I got home last night? Am I not allowed to sleep a little longer? Derek laughed coldly. We went to sleep at the same time. Monica knew arguing with him would get her nowhere. Filling her stomach sounded far more productive. She turned and headed toward the kitchen, but after only a few steps, Derek called out again. Take this upstairs. He nodded toward a large package sitting on the coffee table. Monica walked over and looked at the sender's name. Michael Vaughn. A smile instantly appeared on her face. For some reason, seeing her smile irritated Derek. You've only been back a few days and someone already misses you that much? Monica ignored him completely. Her curiosity about the package was far stronger than her desire to argue. She picked it up and hurried upstairs, forgetting all about her hunger. Just as she reached the staircase, she heard Derek sneeze. Harold immediately handed him a tissue. Mr. Derek, are you getting sick? Should I call a doctor? Derek wiped his nose and waved him off. It's nothing, just a little cold. I'll be fine after some rest. Monica overheard the conversation. But seeing that he still had enough energy to mock her, she assumed it really wasn't serious and continued upstairs. Inside the package was a small artificial Christmas tree. Monica suddenly remembered that Christmas was only a few days away. Everything that had happened recently had completely distracted her. For years in America, Michael, Sarah, and several friends from the club had always celebrated Christmas and New Year's together. Sometimes, Monica felt they were more like family than her actual relatives. Alongside the Christmas tree was a handmade card. On the front was a drawing of Santa Claus, riding a sleigh pulled by reindeer. Glitter sparkled across the artwork. It was clearly Sarah's work. The 10-year-old girl had always shown remarkable artistic talent. Inside the card was a carefully written message. Merry Christmas, Linda. Dad and I miss you very much. Please come back to America soon. Take me out again and teach me how to become a cool DJ like you. We miss you. A small hand-drawn heart sat beneath the message. Monica smiled without realizing it. She had only taught Sarah a few words and phrases for fun, yet the girl loved it so much that she had continued learning on her own. Now, she could even write a full greeting card. Perhaps Monica missed America more than she realized. She missed Sarah. She missed Michael. She missed the life she had built there. Monica assembled the Christmas tree and decorated it with tinsel and colorful lights. Michael had even included cotton and artificial snow because he knew Monica missed the Christmases she used to celebrate with them. As Monica carefully arranged everything around the tree, the bedroom door suddenly opened. Derek entered and frowned at the scene before him. Do you seriously spend your time doing things like this? Christmas is celebrated all over the world. It's one of the biggest holidays of the year. Don't criticize things you don't understand. Derek shrugged. Whatever. But Christmas is still days away. If that thing is still here afterward, I'm throwing both it and you out of this room. Monica rolled her eyes. Then Derek added without looking at her. Your lunch is downstairs. I already told the staff to prepare it. Stop playing around and go eat before you accuse my family of starving you. Monica suddenly remembered she hadn't eaten all day. For a brief moment, she felt that perhaps her husband wasn't completely heartless after all. Maybe I'll argue with you a little less in the future, she muttered, before heading downstairs. That evening, Monica decided to go to bed early. She didn't have a performance tonight, and the past few days had left her exhausted. She planned to reward herself with a full night's sleep. After dinner, she went straight upstairs, grabbed her clothes, and disappeared into the bathroom. A long soak in hot water sounded perfect. When she finally emerged, completely relaxed, she couldn't stop admiring the enormous luxury bathtub. This is what a rich family's bathroom should look like. The apartment bathrooms I used to rent were so small and cramped. Somehow Derek had already returned to the room. He was lying quietly on the bed. Perhaps he was tired too. Usually he would spend hours finding new ways to criticize her. Monica looked at him and raised her fist threateningly. If you weren't disabled, I would have punched you several times already. But since I want to sleep early tonight, I'll let you off. She even punched the air a few times for emphasis before climbing onto the bed. Then she deliberately placed a body pillow between them like a barrier before pulling the blanket over herself. Just as she was about to fall asleep, Derek suddenly spoke. "Where are you going with those blankets and pillows?" Monica paused. Earlier, she had actually intended to sleep in another room. Derek immediately continued, "The house is full of staff. Yesterday there were too many wedding guests for anyone to notice. But if we start sleeping separately and rumors spread, it won't be good for either family." Monica had to admit he had a point. This marriage might have been arranged, but there was no reason to create unnecessary gossip. Seeing that she was still hesitating, Derek added another challenge. "Or, are you afraid I'll do something to you? A woman like you isn't exactly my type." Monica instantly became annoyed. She earned her money honestly. She worked hard. She wasn't some woman selling herself for attention. Without hesitation, she shot back. "With your condition, do you really think you're capable of doing anything to me? Fine, we'll sleep in the same room. Just don't regret it later." She tossed the extra blankets aside, climbed onto the bed, and immediately pulled most of Derek's blanket over to her side. "Hey, what are you doing?" "Sleeping. Wasn't that your idea? Then why are you stealing my blanket?" Monica smirked. "You're one person. How much blanket do you need?" Derek grabbed it back. Monica immediately pulled harder. The two continued fighting over the blanket until Monica wrapped herself in it completely. No matter how hard Derek tried, he couldn't pull it away anymore. "I warned you. Don't regret it later." Derek finally gave up and folded his arms. "Just wait." Monica felt incredibly satisfied. She closed her eyes and drifted off to sleep with a victorious smile still on her face. "Vanessa, don't leave." Monica was drifting off to sleep when she suddenly heard someone speaking. She opened her eyes and looked around. "Vanessa, please don't leave." This time, she listened more carefully. The voice seemed to be coming from Derek. Monica turned toward him. Derek's eyes were still closed, but his expression looked unusually pained. His lips kept moving as he repeatedly called someone's name. "Vanessa." Monica felt slightly annoyed. Whoever Vanessa was, there was no reason to disturb other people while they were trying to sleep. She reached over and shook his shoulder, but there was no response. He seemed completely trapped inside his dream. Monica frowned and tried again. This time, her hand accidentally touched his face. She immediately froze. His skin was burning hot. Startled, she threw back the blanket. Derek's entire body was trembling. Sweat soaked his forehead and dampened his hair. His normally calm and composed face was now flushed red from fever. Monica quickly placed a hand on his forehead. "You're burning up!" She immediately jumped out of bed and headed toward the door, intending to wake someone downstairs. "Don't go," Derek suddenly whispered weakly. Monica stopped. "Please don't go. I don't want my mother worrying about me again." Hearing those words softened something inside her. For the first time, she realized that behind Derek's sharp tongue and arrogant attitude was a man carrying deep insecurities about his condition. Monica slowly returned to the bedside. "Then what am I supposed to do?" "Just get me some fever medicine. I'll be fine." Monica still looked worried, but she followed his instructions. Part of her couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps she was responsible. After all, she had stolen most of the blankets the night before. She brought him medicine and a glass of water. Even then, she wasn't satisfied. She went into the bathroom, soaked a towel in cool water, and carefully placed it across his forehead. Derek stared at her. The fever made sleep difficult. Monica sat on the sofa opposite the bed, watching him quietly. The room remained silent for a long time before Derek finally spoke. "You're wondering who Vanessa is, aren't you?" Monica didn't answer. She was curious, but she didn't necessarily want to admit it. Derek continued anyway. "She was my girlfriend. We met while I was studying in America. Back then she had no idea who I really was. We were just two people in love." His voice became quieter. "Eventually my father's enemies found out where I was. They couldn't get to me directly, so they kidnapped her. They used her to threaten me. Then there was an explosion." He paused. "I lost Vanessa. And I lost my legs." Monica remained silent. For the first time, she understood where his bitterness came from. "Then, how did you become CEO?" she finally asked. "That position was always supposed to be mine after I graduated. Losing my legs didn't change that. I just manage everything from home now." Monica nodded quietly. The room fell silent again. After a while, she stood up, replaced the towel on his forehead, and checked his temperature. The fever seemed slightly better. Monica stayed where she was. Watching over him somehow eased the guilt she felt. At some point during the night, both of them unknowingly fell asleep. When Monica woke up again, it was already 11 o'clock in the morning. She stretched lazily and reached for her phone. So much for her relaxing day off. She still had another performance scheduled tonight. Just as she was enjoying the comfort of the expensive mattress, the bedroom door suddenly opened. Derek entered first. A maid followed behind carrying a tray. Derek instructed her to place it on the table before leaving. The smell of food immediately filled the room. Monica sat up and looked over. A plate of curry rice, barbecue ribs, and fresh salad sat neatly arranged on the tray. It looked delicious. "Hungry?" Derek asked. "That's for you." Monica stared at him in disbelief. Her feet were already moving toward the table automatically. "You brought this for me?" Derek shrugged as though it were obvious. Monica was about to start eating immediately, completely forgetting she hadn't even brushed her teeth yet. Then she suddenly stopped. She slowly lowered the barbecue rib she had just picked up and narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "You didn't poison this, did you?" Derek froze for 2 full seconds before bursting into laughter. "If I wanted to kill you, there are much easier ways. Why would I waste my time doing something so stupid?" He even pretended to reach for the tray. "If you're scared, don't eat it. I'm hungry too." Monica instantly pulled the tray closer to herself protectively. "I wasn't finished talking." Then she added seriously, "A CEO from a family like yours wouldn't do something that childish. So this food should be safe." Without wasting another second, she finally started eating. To Monica, good food was one of life's greatest joys. Between bites, Derek suddenly spoke again. "Thank you." Monica looked up, still chewing. "For what?" "For last night." Monica shrugged as though it had been nothing. She continued eating while Derek quietly watched her for a moment before turning and leaving the room. Monica had been living at the Thornton estate for more than a month. She still performed as a DJ regularly. Patricia continued treating her warmly, while Derek still occasionally teased her, fought over blankets, rooms, and random belongings. However, he had become far less hostile than before. Sometimes Monica even felt he was more childish than she had originally imagined. Early that morning, before she was fully awake, Monica heard her phone ringing somewhere nearby. With her eyes still half closed, she searched for it for quite a while before finally finding it near the foot of the bed. "Hello?" she answered between yawns. "Linda, it's Katie. Dad and I are already outside the estate, the one you gave us the address for." Monica instantly felt her sleepiness disappear. "What? Where are you?" "We're at the gate of the estate you told us about. The Thornton estate." Monica looked toward the window. "Oh my God," she muttered. She immediately hung up, rushed downstairs without even noticing her messy hair or pajamas, and ran toward the gate. Outside the grand golden gates stood 2 familiar figures. One was tall and carrying luggage. The other was a little girl with bright blonde curls. Monica could hardly believe her eyes. She ran forward and hugged Katie tightly. "Katie, I missed you so much." Michael Vaughn stood beside them holding a travel bag and a large suitcase. Watching the reunion, he laughed. "Hey, don't forget I'm standing here too." "Right, Michael." Monica laughed and gave him a friendly hug. "You look like a real backpacking tourist." Katie immediately began asking questions. "Linda, do you really live in a house this big? Do you live here with your husband?" Why are there so many people here? Who are they? Monica didn't even know where to begin answering, so instead, she led them inside while continuing to chat and laugh together. The three of them spent the day talking and exploring the estate. From a distance, they almost looked like a small, happy family. Derek happened to see them together from inside the house. For some reason, he felt uncomfortable. Without saying anything, he turned around and went back to his office. Later, Monica took Michael and Katie around the estate grounds. She even promised that one day she would show them her own family home as well. Katie immediately cheered. "Let's go tomorrow." But Michael laughed and shook his head. They still had work to do and couldn't stay long. He promised they would visit another time. Monica then took them around the city, introducing them to some of her favorite southern restaurants and showing them several local attractions. By the time she dropped Michael and Katie off at their hotel that evening so they could fly to Miami the next day for business, everyone was exhausted. When Monica finally returned to her room that night, Derek was sitting on the bed reading a book. He didn't even look up when she entered. "So that's your boyfriend from America. And he even has a daughter." Monica placed her bag in the closet and took out her pajamas. "He's a coworker, and my manager whenever I perform there," Derek snorted. "Really? Anyone who saw the three of you together would have thought you were a family." Monica rolled her eyes. "If people don't know the truth, that's not my problem." After changing into her pajamas, she walked out of the bathroom and immediately noticed Derek had wrapped the entire blanket around himself, as though it belonged exclusively to him. Monica sighed. He was acting childish again. "Fine, keep it." She walked over to the closet, grabbed a spare blanket, and settled down for the night. That evening, Derek was the only one lying awake feeling irritated. He couldn't understand why he suddenly felt this way. Meanwhile, Monica had already fallen asleep. The next morning, Derek woke up and discovered Monica had already left. Even Harold Bennett mentioned that she had gone out early. Derek frowned. Was she spending the day with Michael and Katie again? Without realizing it, he picked up his phone several times intending to call her. Each time he stopped himself. It felt strange. For years, he had never cared where anyone went or what they did. Why should he suddenly care about Monica? Yet whenever he remembered seeing her with Michael and Katie, laughing together like a family, he felt increasingly irritated. The entire day passed that way. He repeatedly picked up his phone and put it back down. He walked around the house. He looked toward the gate, again and again, but Monica never returned. Late that night, Monica finally returned. She looked exhausted. There was a faint smell of alcohol on her. She walked upstairs, entered the room, and collapsed onto the bed. "Women these days even drink now?" Derek muttered. Normally, Monica would have fired back immediately. This time she didn't respond. She simply stared at the ceiling. Derek immediately sensed something was wrong. He had been prepared to ask where she had gone all day, but seeing her like this made every annoyance disappear. In its place came worry. "What's wrong?" Monica remained silent. Then suddenly a tear rolled down her cheek. Derek froze. He quickly put down the book he had been holding. He leaned closer, wanting to place a hand on her shoulder, but hesitating. Monica continued crying quietly. It was the first time she had cried in years. She hadn't cried when her mother died. She hadn't cried when her father brought another woman into the house. She hadn't cried during the hardest years in America when she barely had enough money to survive, yet now the tears wouldn't stop. Derek sat beside her silently. He wanted to comfort her but didn't know how. Finally, Monica sat up and looked at him through tear-filled eyes. "Can I borrow your shoulder for a little while?" Derek didn't say a word. He simply nodded. Monica immediately threw herself into his arms. "Today was my mother's Memorial Day," she whispered through tears. "I went home to prepare offerings for her." But the three of them acted like nothing happened. They didn't even prepare a single meal for her. When I tried to do it myself, they picked a fight with me. They said I was married now and had no right to come back. Everything they have came from my grandfather and my mother, so why does it all belong to them now? Derek tightened his arms around her and quietly wiped away her tears. "Next year, bring your mother's memorial portrait to the Thornton estate. I'll have everything prepared for her." Perhaps it was the alcohol. Perhaps it was because she finally felt safe. Monica slowly fell asleep in Derek's arms. Derek looked down at the sleeping woman, resting against his chest. At that moment, she seemed strangely adorable. And for the first time, he realized something he had been refusing to admit. Somewhere along the way, he had fallen in love with her. Thinking about everything that would soon happen, Derek couldn't stop himself from letting out a long sigh. Outside, the wind suddenly grew stronger. Dark clouds gathered across the sky. It felt as though a storm was coming. And with it, a change that would turn everything upside down. Monica woke up the next morning to find that Derek had already left. She vaguely remembered what had happened the night before. In her hazy memories, she could still hear Derek's voice, telling her that she could bring her mother's memorial portrait there every year. What exactly did he mean by that? Monica thought about it for a while but couldn't figure it out. Eventually, she shrugged it off, assuming she must have heard wrong. When she went downstairs, Patricia was the only one sitting in the living room watching the news. Monica walked over. "Don't you have anything scheduled today?" Patricia smiled immediately when she saw her. "Come, have breakfast with me. I'm free today. How about we go shopping afterward?" "Ever since you moved in, I haven't really spent much time with you." Monica smiled. A warm feeling unexpectedly rose inside her. It had been so long since anyone had cared for her the way a mother would. When she had first arrived here, Patricia constantly checked on her and even waited to have breakfast with her. At first, it had felt strange and unfamiliar. After breakfast, Patricia had the driver take them to a luxury shopping mall. The two women spent hours browsing and buying all kinds of things. While passing the men's department, Patricia suddenly stopped. "I want to buy a few things for Derek." Monica quietly followed her inside. While Patricia examined several racks, Monica noticed a sports outfit that immediately caught her attention. It seemed perfect for Derek. "That one looks good," Patricia said from behind her. "You know how to pick clothes for men?" Monica jumped slightly and forced an awkward smile. "Not really. I just thought it looked nice. I've never bought clothes for a man before." Then she added without thinking, "Besides, I've never actually seen Derek standing up." The moment the words left her mouth, she regretted them. She carefully glanced at Patricia's expression. To her surprise, Patricia wasn't angry. If he hadn't gone through that explosion, Patricia said softly, "He would be a tall, healthy young man today." Monica lowered her eyes and said nothing more. By the time they returned home that afternoon, they were carrying countless shopping bags. Among them was the outfit Monica had picked out for Derek. Monica had just carried the bags upstairs and was preparing to shower when someone knocked on her bedroom door. "May I come in?" Patricia asked. "Of course." Monica immediately stood up. Since the wedding, Patricia had never entered this room before. Patricia stepped inside, glanced around the tidy bedroom, and took a seat. "Monica, may I ask you something?" Monica nodded. Patricia hesitated briefly before speaking. "Do you resent being forced to marry someone like Derek?" Monica was caught completely off guard. She instinctively looked away. Patricia continued, "Whatever you're feeling, you can tell me honestly. If you think this marriage is unfair to you, I will let the two of you divorce. I won't allow you to suffer because of us." Monica didn't know what to say. Was her mother-in-law actually encouraging her to divorce her own son? Patricia sighed softly. "I know being forced into an arranged marriage is difficult. And the husband you received isn't exactly perfect. Back then, I only hoped my son would have a wife. I thought perhaps one day he could have children and a family of his own. But after getting to know you, after seeing how strong and kind you are, I feel guilty. It feels unfair to you." Monica remained silent. Patricia stood up and walked toward the door. "Think carefully about it. Whatever decision you make, you won't leave this family empty-handed." Patricia reached the doorway before suddenly turning back toward Monica. "Oh, and Derek had to go to the company today. Why don't you pick him up this evening?" Only then did Monica finally understand. She quickly nodded. Of course. When she came downstairs later, the driver was already waiting. He immediately opened the car door for her. The vehicle drove directly to the headquarters of Thornton Global Holdings. At the moment Monica entered the building, she realized everyone seemed to know exactly who she was. Employees greeted her respectfully as she walked by. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Thornton." "Hello, Mrs. Thornton." Monica felt uncomfortable with the attention. Back at her family's company, Many employees didn't even know who she was. Some had once mistaken her for a visitor. Yet here, everyone treated her like royalty. Had her marriage to Derek really become such major news? Not wanting to attract even more attention, Monica hurried into the elevator. Derek's office occupied the 33rd floor, the highest level in the building. When the elevator doors opened, silence greeted her, and the hallway was nearly empty. The atmosphere felt so quiet that it almost seemed abandoned. Since she didn't know the layout, Monica wandered for a while before finally locating the CEO's office. The door wasn't fully closed. Curious, she glanced through the opening. Derek was sitting behind his desk. Standing in front of him was a fashionable young woman, wearing a white designer dress and carrying an expensive handbag. Her back faced Monica, making it impossible to see her face clearly. Monica couldn't see Derek's expression either. Then the woman suddenly stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Derek's neck. Her shoulders trembled as though she were crying. Derek didn't appear eager to return the embrace, but he didn't push her away either. Instead, he placed his hands on her shoulders. Monica immediately frowned. At home, Derek constantly criticized her clothing and behavior. Yet here he was entertaining another woman in his office. Before she could leave, a voice suddenly spoke behind her. "Excuse me," Monica nearly jumped. A young employee in business attire stood there staring at her. "You're Mrs. Thornton, right?" Monica immediately placed a finger over her lips. "Keep your voice down." The employee quickly covered her mouth in embarrassment. Unfortunately, the commotion had already attracted attention from inside the office. Derek looked toward the door. "Monica, come in!" The employee immediately found an excuse to leave. Monica reluctantly entered the office. "Patricia asked me to pick you up for dinner. She also wanted me to see the company." Derek adjusted his tie. The woman beside him wiped away her tears. "Give me a few minutes. I'm almost finished." Monica nodded. "I'll wait outside." "No. Sit over there." Derek pointed toward the seating area across from his desk. Monica reluctantly sat down, and the atmosphere immediately became awkward. Derek continued working while the woman occasionally glanced toward Monica. Finally, she couldn't hold back anymore. "She's your new wife, isn't she?" Derek looked at Monica, then at the woman, but said nothing. He simply lowered his head and continued working. The woman suddenly became emotional again. "You're really choosing to stay with her instead of coming back to me?" Derek finally looked up. "Vanessa." "No. Answer me." "I was your first love. I was the woman you loved most." "Vanessa, stop." Derek slammed his pen onto the desk. His voice was sharp enough to silence her instantly. Monica stared at the woman in shock. "Vanessa." Was this the same Vanessa Derek had spoken about during his fever? The same woman he believed had died in the explosion? Vanessa's eyes filled with tears again. "I can't accept this. I can't accept you marrying her while rejecting me." Derek's face remained cold. "I know everything that happened back then." Vanessa's expression changed immediately. "I know exactly what you did," Derek continued. "You staged the kidnapping. You took the money and disappeared. I lost my legs because of it. I've chosen not to pursue the matter." "Leave." Vanessa suddenly laughed. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a folding knife. Before anyone could react, she rushed toward Monica and pressed the blade against her neck. Everything happened too quickly. Monica froze. "Don't move," Vanessa hissed. "One movement and this knife goes straight into an artery. You're a doctor. You know exactly what that means, don't you?" Monica's eyes widened. Very few people knew she was actually a doctor. Yet Vanessa somehow knew. Derek's face darkened. "Let her go." Vanessa laughed again. "Why should I?" Monica listened in shock as Derek continued. "Back then, you staged the kidnapping and explosion for money. I already spared you. Don't push me any further." Only then did Monica finally understand. Vanessa had never died. She had betrayed Derek and abandoned him. Now she had returned, hoping to reclaim what she had lost. "Let her go," Derek repeated. Vanessa smiled mockingly. "And what exactly are you going to do about it?" She deliberately pulled Monica closer to Derek's desk, as if challenging him. The next second, everything changed. Derek suddenly stood up. He moved around the desk, grabbed Vanessa's wrist, twisted the knife away, and shoved her backward. Vanessa crashed onto the floor. Monica nearly fell with her, but Derek caught her arm just in time. Vanessa stared at him in horror. The man she believed would never walk again was standing right in front of her. Fear quickly replaced her shock. Humiliated and terrified, she scrambled to her feet and ran from the office. Monica remained frozen. Her eyes never left Derek's legs. Derek was standing. Completely standing. The drive home was silent. After returning to the estate and settling into their room, Derek finally spoke. "I'm recovering. I can stand and walk for short periods now, but I'm not fully stable yet. I'm the largest shareholder and the CEO. If people learn the truth too early, it could affect the company." Monica listened quietly. Derek continued. "At first, Patricia wanted me to marry you because she knew you were a doctor. She hoped you could help me recover. But the truth is, I was already undergoing treatment." Monica slowly lowered her eyes. Suddenly, everything became clear. She had thought she mattered. She had thought the relationship between them had changed after everything they had experienced together. Yet in the end, she was still only part of a plan. A convenient shield protecting secrets Derek didn't want anyone else to know. That night, they once again slept beneath separate blankets. But Monica couldn't fall asleep. She thought about Patricia's words earlier that day. She thought about Derek's recovery. She understood something now. Once Derek fully recovered, her usefulness would disappear. Perhaps she would eventually be asked to leave anyway. Maybe it would be better to leave while she could still do so with dignity. After all, she had never intended to stay forever when she agreed to this marriage. Even after making her decision, Monica couldn't ignore the strange sense of loss lingering in her heart. Michael Vaughn had spent more than a month traveling while combining business with sightseeing. A few days before his departure, he called Monica and told her he would be returning to Atlanta over the weekend. Monica told him she would be leaving with him. Michael asked whether she had thought it through carefully. Monica hesitated, but eventually confirmed that she had made up her mind. That afternoon, she canceled every DJ booking she had accepted. She planned to work one final night before leaving. That evening, she didn't join Patricia and Derek for dinner. Instead, she asked one of the housemaids to bring food upstairs. She intended to tell them about her decision during dinner, but every time she tried to begin, the words refused to come out. Later that night, she headed to the nightclub. Monica had never been someone who drank while working, but that night was different. Surrounded by pounding music and flashing lights, she drank far more than she should have. The more she drank, the more Derek's face occupied her thoughts. When she finally realized she was becoming drunk, she forced herself to stay conscious long enough to get home. It was well past 2 in the morning when she returned to the Thornton estate. The lights in the bedroom were still on. Derek was awake. He watched her stumble into the room and collapse onto the bed. "Since when do you drink?" he asked. Monica didn't answer. For some reason, she suddenly found it funny. Derek was always like this, always criticizing her. Maybe that was why he only wanted her as a shield. Derek frowned as he watched her stare blankly at the ceiling. Then Monica finally spoke. "We should get divorced." Derek froze. For a moment, he thought he had misheard. Monica repeated herself, "We should get divorced." A tear rolled down her cheek, then another. Derek felt genuine panic for the first time. "Why?" "There is no why," Monica said quietly. "We didn't start with love. Divorce was always going to happen eventually. I'm tired. I want a divorce." Derek didn't know what to say. He could tell this wasn't a discussion. It was a decision. The room fell silent. Eventually, Derek turned toward her. Monica had already fallen asleep. Her body was curled slightly from the cold. He moved closer and pulled the blanket over her. The warm bedside light illuminated her face. Her skin looked soft. Her cheeks were lightly flushed from the alcohol. Long eyelashes rested against her skin. Her lips were slightly parted. For a moment, Derek simply looked at her and felt his heart racing. When Derek opened his eyes the next morning, Monica was still sleeping peacefully beside him. The events of the previous night returned to his mind. Unable to stop himself, he leaned down and gently kissed her forehead. The small gesture woke her. Monica slowly opened her eyes and found Derek looking at her. The moment she remembered what had happened, her face turned red. Normally, Monica was bold enough to argue with him over anything. Now she suddenly looked unusually quiet. Derek laughed softly. "So, do you still want a divorce?" Monica immediately buried her face against his chest and refused to answer. Derek wrapped an arm around her. "Monica!" She didn't respond. "Please don't leave." This time she looked up. Derek held her gaze. "I love you." The room became completely silent. Monica stared at him for several seconds. Then she slowly nodded. Later that day, Monica called Michael Vaughn. Michael answered immediately. "So, are you ready?" Monica smiled. "Actually, I won't be coming back with you." Michael was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. "I had a feeling that might happen." Monica looked out the window toward the gardens of the Thornton estate. For the first time since returning home, she felt completely at peace. "I think I'll be staying here for a while." "Because of Derek?" Monica smiled again. "Because I finally found a place where I belong." After ending the call, Monica stood by the window for a long moment. Outside, the afternoon sunlight filled the estate grounds, and, behind her, Derek called her name. Monica turned around. This time, instead of walking away, she walked toward him, and toward the future they would build together.